Beer is in a bottle, can, or glass. Kick back. Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's better on draft.
Welcome, everybody. Episode 299, Better on Draft Podcast. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a big episode for you today. We are excited to have them in studio, but let's go around, get a hold of the host, and see what everybody is drinking, starting with Dan. Dan, what do you got?
Oh, you know, it being 4 o'clock and 100 degrees here, I decided to bust out a Utopias barrel-aged worldwide stout.
Dan's going hard at 4 p.m. Wouldn't expect anything less. Robert, what do you got?
As soon as I find my bottle opener, I'll be cracking these open. But I have I guess you could pretty much say a vintage bottle of Dogfish Head 120 minute that was bottled back in 2016. And I also have, as I will probably be sipping on during the duration, is a Sam Adams American Creek, an ale aged with Balaton cherries in oak barrels, which presumably was made probably in like 2015, 2014. I guess we'll see how it tastes.
All right. We also have Wendy. Wendy, what do you have?
Well, apparently I'm taking it easy this time because I have a Sam Adams Wicked Double Hazy IPA. And I also have a 60-minute IPA from Dogfish Head.
And for myself, I have a 90-minute IPA. Which is going to be interesting for me because we all know my feelings on IPAs, which means that just in case I'm not a big fan, I'm going to be crushing it down with a vodka crush, blood orange, and mango Dogfish Head culinary craft cocktail. So with that means we have a bunch of Dogfish Head. Everyone knows how this game goes. We have Dogfish Head in studio, starting with CJ. CJ, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you do with Dogfish Head?
Hey, everybody. My name is CJ Novack. I am the divisional analyst for the New England division of BBC, Boston Beer Company. I started with Dogfish Head back in 2017. I've been into craft beer for about 25 years, and I worked in it for almost 6 years at this point, so it's kind of funny. But I am currently drinking a 90-minute, just like Kenneth there, so we're good to go.
And for those of you who are unaware, Dogfish Head does have a partner in crime, a parent company, if you will. We have Dan from the Boston Beer Company. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you do, and explain to everyone why it looks like you're being kidnapped.
How's it going, everybody? Dan Petruzzella. I'm the area manager for the states of Maine and New England here for the Boston Beer Company. So I control the two sales teams in each one of those states, working very closely with CJ as well. And it looks like I'm being kidnapped right now because I'm in my car hiding during a high school football game that I coach. So excuse me if I do have to jump a little early. And for me, it's water, some great Poland spring water from the state of Maine.
Well, while we have you here, one of the things that I ask a lot of guests, we had the opportunity this year to chat with Clown Shoes. And being a brewery that has been in distribution, especially in Michigan, for decades now, what is how do you currently and continue to redefine Boston Beer Company, Dogfish Head, to keep your guys' beer in the refrigerators of craft beer drinkers like us who are, to be honest, we just go to whatever is the next newest and newest made?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because to start with, there are just so many great breweries, great brewers out there. I think there's upwards of over 7,000 in the United States right now. Here in the state of Maine and Vermont, there are two meccas. And also go along with your question, what I can tell you is that, we have some great campaigns, some great brand team individuals that work cross-functionally with us in the sales department to put together great campaigns and execute them out in the market.
All right. Well, I was not planning to push it real fast, but I do need to push it over to Rob. Rob, take it away.
All right, let me actually unmute myself here. So actually, and once again, while you're still here, one of the things that I wanted to ask about in terms of the market, and we've talked about this with other breweries like Shiner, Firestone Walker, I think other breweries like that. But, as craft beer drinkers and seeing craft beer being marketed, that we always feel like there is a huge and a bigger opportunity with marketing beer to women consumers and people of color. But we also, at least myself personally, I don't see that there's a lot of brands that really speak in those areas. I'm curious, are there any ideas that maybe you would like to pursue in reaching these groups, and or just there's something that Boston Beer Co. / Dogfish Head that is possibly doing on a scale that would market towards those areas?
Yeah, totally, Rob. And I got to give you a shout out for your beer of choice, American Creek, one of my favorites. It's a beer that's made with Cosmic Motherfunk as the base, different levels blended in all of our barrel room collections. So that's one of my favorites. So shout out to you right there. To go along with your question right there, we have the autonomy sometimes to craft, local campaigns, local promotions, tied together with different local programs, different benefits that we can, work alongside and support. Overall, Boston Beer Company strives to be, deliver the best quality products in every category. And we kind of try to speak to everybody because, one of the best things I like about craft beer and about consumers, including myself, is that everybody's taste buds are different. So we do have different marketing campaigns to go, towards different drinkers, like you're saying. But ideally, the goal per brand would be to get those beverages or liquids in the hands of everybody of legal drinking age. That is,
of course. That's always important to make sure of legal drinking age. Okay, that's good. Another one that I wanted to jump into. I always feel like with these questions, you're just jumping in, just hardcore with these serious questions. It's so early. But I'm going to throw this one out here. Is that it was another question that came from another interview that we had. I believe this was from Firestone Walker. And it was mentioned, the person that we were interviewing, which I'm sorry, I can't remember his name right now. But he had said in an interview that the Sam Adams portfolio is only 9% of their total sales comes from Sam Adams, and a large chunk comes from truly hard seltzers. I'm curious if the information that possibly you have seen, if that is true, and if so, or maybe if not, what makes Truly such a big seller?
Yeah, so when I started in 2013, fast forward right now to 2022, we have brand segments that didn't even exist, so to say. I can't really speak to those specific sales stats or percentages. But what I can say, specifically to New England and northern New England, where I work, is IRI data, which is scan data. Right now, most of that is being driven by the non-alcoholic segment, PABs, and also imports. Minus imports, we're fortunate enough to play in those other two segments, along with some others. And truly hard seltzer, just like the whole hard sparkling water category, 7 years ago didn't exist whatsoever. So not to say that the whole seltzer category is a phenomenon, but kind of a once in a lifetime thing that, once it didn't exist, then boom, it's here. There was a boom for cider, even in the early 2012, 2013, I believe. But I'm just always asking myself, what's next?
And there's so much that and it just kind of lends to what you're saying, is that there's so much out there. Before I get to my next one, Nick is in the group. He's in the chat. Nick has entered the chat. How's it going, Nick? What you drinking over there?
Not only entered the chat, but took over as host, because this is my Zoom channel. Anyway, I'm starting off with the Sam Adams. What was that?
Don't tell Ken.
No, well, He knows. I'm drinking the Sam Adams Just the Haze, the NA. I'm starting with that. And when I got this, I got very, very interested. And this will be my next one from Dogfish Head Distilling, the Vodka Crush.
Ooh.
So I'm very, we're going to have to talk about this because
I like your style.
I got some questions about this right here, but let's continue.
Ken is getting ready to crush that one too. Now I read in an article that back in July there's the teapot line of cannabis infused iced teas were hitting some Canadian markets. I think the thing and the question I was kind of going to go into was actually what you were just mentioning about there's being so many different choices that are out there right now, and with craft beer obviously became ciders, the seltzers, the non-alcoholic beers were actually more non-alcoholic beers because we've had them already in the past. Gluten-free beers, the RTDs, and now the cannabis drinks. In your opinion, is there a point in your mind where there's too much variety for maybe a fear of just spreading the options too thin? Or is this just what the field is, what you have to work with, and you got to sell what you got to sell to who's going to buy it?
Oh, that's for me. Sorry about that.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I like quoted earlier, over 7,000 brewers alone within craft beer within the U.S. Now those craft brewers are also playing in other subsegments. So a lot of people being invited to the party, and there's definitely a lot of homes for them out there. But yeah, at some points, it could definitely be overwhelming. One thing I really do enjoy about Boston Beer is no matter what like segment or category we are in or represent, we always strive to make the highest quality products for the consumer. So that subdivision that you mentioned, because of legalities, we're not able to try, or if there are any samples just yet. But always looking forward to like the next innovation. The next thing that could take off and what our representation from our brewers is of that style segment category.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And I'll add in that, like, I think that the merging of Dogfish Head and BBC with Sam Adams, I think that we're going to create such a kind of like a laboratory of like creating these like interesting new innovative things between the two of us. That and obviously now that we're one, but I mean Teapot I think is one that like Dan said. Due to like federal regulations, we can't really do much with it outside of inside of the U.S. It's functioning up in Canada at this point, but we can't do much with it. So it's kind of like it's a big innovative category that we have here. So it's got a good future.
Right. And hopefully we'll start to see, obviously there's still more regulations that are here in the U.S. that have to change before we start seeing it a bit more pronounced in the U.S. So it's good. Yeah, a lot of them. But I guess it's good to have a friendly neighbor up north to be able to test it up there and before we can really bring it to market here in the U.S. Exactly. But CJ, I had a question for you. I've heard that you're not a very big fan of ABI. I'm curious, is this a big beer thing? Is it they're buying up small breweries thing? Is there something more to that?
It's not really like, I'm not like, I think it's more so just like the aggressive tactics that go into it, like the buying up of like craft breweries to basically create like, kind of like the appearance of like being a craft brewery type of thing. I'm not a fan of misrepresenting of like what someone is, if that makes any sense. That's my primary disagreement with it. There's a lot of like weird tactics that go on with big beer, and that's my biggest gripe with it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Does it make you feel like when those small breweries are bought up, and we get this a lot with some of the breweries that, once they get bought out, it's like, oh, they're not craft. They're bought by the man now. I'm not going to buy any beer from them anymore. Does that, like, even with them still being there, does that really matter with that brewery, the brewery itself, not necessarily ABI and their tactics, just the brewery that is being acquired?
No, I will tell you that years ago, CJ of like 30 years old probably would think about that way. I'm 51, by the way. It's been a long time since I've been 30. But no, I mean, at this point, it's like, honestly, it's like if you create a brewery and you create any business, to be honest with you, and you build it up to the point that like you can sell it for like whatever amount of money you want to sell it for. I mean, by all means, it's your brewery, sell it. I mean, go for it. It doesn't mean that like, honestly, I drink some beers that have been acquired by ABI because I mean, they're good beers. I mean, Goose Island is like, a spectacular freaking brewery. And it's like, they put out freaking all of their Bourbon County stuff. And it's like, it's a beautiful beer. So I'm not going to like, disparage a brewery that was created and then, rose to the point where they could be acquired and like, take off like that. So
yeah,
no.
It's just like going from the minors to the majors.
Exactly.
All right, I'm gonna pass this over to Ken because he's got some.
Thank you very much. So before I know Dan, we're on a time crunch for you, so I want to get one more question at least from you before you go run plays over at the high school football game. My question is very simple because Nick had the opportunity to go to your guys' brewery and taste a lot of the R&D and distro that you guys have locally. Is there a beer that Sam Adams made, Boston Beer Co. made, that you wish they would bring back? What's on your wish list?
Oh, now that is a great question. All right, so I think I need to name two of them.
Okay, name two. There's no rules.
Okay.
We make it up as we go.
That's what I like. So there is a beer that I had. It was part of our what we call the Brewmaster series. First of all, let me throw this out there. When I first started with the Boston Beer Company, just with the Sam Adams brand, over 63 different beers in rotation just for that given year that hit the shelves, not just R&D. One of those beers that I fell in love with was called Black Lager. Looked like a iced cold blue, black, no cream. And it was a very light body. Some of that roasted malt in there really brought out kind of a little bit of astringent flavors. But it was so light, so smooth. That is definitely one from the vault. And then the other beer, it's a toss-up. I think I'm going to have to go with Millennium because I had never got to try that beer. I was not of age when that was first released, but I would definitely love to try that one.
What do you think? I guess my other question, when a lot of people talk about craft beer, they obviously say, if it's bought by ABI InBev or if it's bought by Molson Coors. But then there's this like second tier in which you guys in Yuengling are kind of on your own island. There's you are a fraction of the guys above, and a lot of the people are a fraction of what you are. What is your thoughts when people say, oh, you're not craft beer? And the second question is how much money, because this is what I've heard all the time, how much money did you guys pay the Brewers Association to change the barrelage limit from 2 million to 6 million?
Association. Can you repeat the question once again?
Yeah, so how much money did you pay the Brewers Association to change the barrelage limit from 2 million to 6 million so that Boston Beer Company was still craft beer?
Yeah, to my knowledge, I've never heard of anybody paying the Brewers Association anything. That would be above my pay grade. So, yeah.
Dan, that's a joke, by the way. Don't think too hard.
Yeah. I don't know.
That is a fun rumor that gets told all the time. That you guys and Dick Yuengling, paid a bunch of money to the Brewers Association to raise the limit from 2 million to 6 million so that you guys would still be considered craft. So we know it's true. We know you just can't tell us the amount, but is it, $10,000, $100,000? Like, can you give me a thumbs? We can't even see you much anymore.
Ken, you're such a jerk.
I know. I mean, it was basically, it was like,
yeah.
It was like trading places. They just gave $1.
drinking place.
The initial question, which we'll leave you with, is when people discuss Sam Adams and Yingling, a lot of people don't say you guys are craft or independent because you guys are just too big. What is your thoughts on those sentiments?
Sure. First of all, first time I heard about that rumor, I'm going to add it to my book of hundreds of rumors I've heard.
Yeah, same here.
So that's why I love rumors. But there's a lot of definitions out there. It all comes down to, I get to see what our founder of the Boston Beer Company, Jim Cook, how heavily involved he is. And he's still the majority shareholder. So we're a public traded company. Final decisions all go through him. But just the involvement from him is still going and getting every first keg from any of our breweries that are brewing a Boston lager and trying that to make sure it's up to his quality standards. And the first time he had it and brewed it in his just every brand plan. We have our national meeting coming up in a week, and he's there talking to everybody, mingling. He's leading the charge, telling us what 2023 is going to look like, everything we have to look forward to, and all our hard efforts that we've done here in 2022. But yeah, I don't know. When people say that we're too big, I try to have to ask them, all right, name more than 5 beers or like 5 products from us, and they normally can't. So to me, it's all a matter of perception, and people may perceive us as bigger sometimes, but we're still a little fish in a big pond.
And in addition to that, I mean, as far as like the size of Boston Beer in comparison to the conglomerates, we are nothing compared to what ABI, Molson Coors, we are nothing compared to that. So, I mean, maybe in the craft scene, we appear to be big, and we are. I mean, I'm not going to say we're not, but at the same time, let's keep it in perspective.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody. Good luck with the rest of the podcast. I got to jump and go yell at some players.
Thanks, Dan.
Good luck with the game.
Go
Thanks.
team.
Go team.
Go
Win
yell
the
at
points.
kids.
I mean, that's definitely fair, because I mean, does like Molson and ABI report their barrelage numbers? I mean, we see everything with we see everything from the craft industry and the Brewers Association, but I can't say that I've ever seen what the barrelage numbers are for Miller or ABI in terms of what they do. But I know that it's just like what you're saying, CJ, is that it's pretty damn big, because they are
huge.
They are worldwide. They're putting all of their beers from, they're probably selling kegs in Antarctica. I mean, I don't know.
And additionally, they're foreign owned. So I mean, Boston Beer is 100% American owned. So I mean, it's kind of, hey, we're at the, I won't say we're at the top of the food chain for the American owned. I think that probably goes to like some other larger craft breweries in the country, but we're up there.
I'm sure you could get the barrelage numbers if you went to their, quarterly review or year-end review on their portfolio, saying how much that they made, and their like stock, like whatever it's called at the end of the year. I can't think of it. But the Brewers Association does release all of the breweries under it. So you could find out how much like Goose Island made, or how much like Blue Moon made, or Leinenkugel. So you're able to find this information, but it's not as easily as accessible as the rest. But I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Cook over here. Dan, how's it going?
Good. So CJ, I got one really important question I got to ask you. And I apologize if you don't have the answer to this, but I hope you do. What the heck happened to Palo Santo Marron, and when's it coming back?
Dude, I wish I knew. I mean, honestly, Palo Santo Marron was one of those beers that, like, there's a couple of beers that we have, we never retire a beer. We do what we call put it on hiatus, which means there's always the option that it will come back. For me, Indian Brown Ale, IBA, was one that we recently put on hiatus a couple of years ago, and I really miss that beer. I will tell you that in coastal Delaware, where the Milton Brewery is and the pub is, every now and then we have this great brewer down there that will actually put together like these small batches of stuff. So Palo Santo, is not on that list, but every now and then it's kind of like, you get some, these kind of like, these beers that have been put on hiatus and like they'll come back every now and then. Palo Santo requires those Palo Santo tanks that we have and large amounts of liquid in order to fill it up in order to get that beer. So honestly, I'm not sure what's going on with that. So I can't really be a great answer, but again, it's never retired. It's always just kind of like on hiatus.
Understandable. Now, Dogfish Head, it is pretty IPA heavy. Actually, one of the first craft beers I had outside of the old school ones, talking about, Ken, help me, that damn red ale that everyone used to drink. It's slipping my mind for whatever reason. Killian's, thank you. Yeah. Before that, Dogfish Head, when I was briefly living in the DC area, was one of the first craft beers I actually ever had outside of things like the Killian's. Talk to us a little bit about some of the other beers that Dogfish Head makes. Everyone knows the 120 minutes, the 90 minutes, the 60. Talk to us a little bit about the portfolio and what are some of your highlights? What are some of your favorites in there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's 120, which is like, the kind of like the hophead, like the masterful hophead IPA, which is, it tends to be between like 15 and 18%. We actually just released a variant of Worldwide Stout, which is we're doing Wake Up Worldwide Stout, which is actually like a coffee infused Worldwide Stout. So again, it's like this big imperial stout that we're using with a local coffee brewer in Rehoboth, Delaware. And they provided the coffee. So like, it's going to be like a nice coffee infused, 15 to 18%, whatever the ABV comes out to. That's currently going into distribution at this point. Currently drinking the 90 minute, which is like kind of like the legendary, it's the continually hopped IPA that we actually, the whole story behind this is like the continual hopping is something where Sam actually was watching this like a cooking show where like the chef was basically taking like pepper and throughout the boil of the soup was like sprinkling pepper throughout the entire time. And he decided he would try to like do this whole thing with like this beer where he would continually hop it. So what he ended up doing was using like this electric football table. And I'm sure you've heard this story, I'm sure. But basically it bounced hot pellets into the boil, and like over a period of time, obviously 90 minutes of boil, it came up with this beer that like it wasn't cloyingly bitter, but it had this nice smooth hop addition to it. It wasn't hop overboard, but at the same time, it was just kind of like it was there. You could get it. Very smooth IPA. So I mean, that's the beer that I'm currently drinking, and obviously a couple of you are too. 60 minutes is kind of like a little brother to that. Again, continually hopped, 6%, so a little bit younger. I remember years ago Sam saying that someone asked him if we would ever do a session IPA, and of course we have Slightly Mighty now, but at that point we didn't have it. So he basically said 60 minute, it's kind of our session IPA. People just need to step up. So kind of a funny okay, well, yeah, 6% session. And aside from that, I mean, Sequence is the other one that we kind of like. We take great pride in. It's our session sour. Sequence is actually it's 3 beers. It's a Kolsch, Berliner Weiss, and a Goza that we actually brew separately. Blend them together with crushed black limes. Add some Maine sea salt into it. It becomes almost like a margarita flavored type of like a sour, session sour, which I'm thinking most of you have had that before. We like to play a lot of games with it down in Delaware where we would add shots of tequila to it to make it like a margarita. But it's a great beer. And aside from that, we do some one-offs here and there. We've got we mentioned 120. I know coming up we've done in the past. We've got 120, and this is the benefit of the merging with Boston Beer. Is we've got 120 aged in Utopias barrels. So, it's a great kind of, collaboration there that we can kind of do now that we're all merged together. Those are some of the ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
Now, again, you might not have the answer to this, but I'm just kind of curious because, I love Worldwide Stout, probably one of my favorite stouts, but it's pretty easy to it's kind of like time traveling. You can drink a few of these and you wake up, it's Friday night when you drink them, you wake up on Tuesday.
Oh yeah.
It's one of those kind of beers. Had there ever been any talks or any plans to make, maybe a 10% stout? It doesn't have to be a 6%. I mean, we drink pretty big beers, especially when it comes to stouts all the time. Is there any plans or talks to make something that's not going to knock you into next week after you drink two of them?
From my position, I would love to answer that question, but I mean, that's more on the, kind of like the brewing side that they can kind of talk about that stuff. I'm less in the planning side than I am more on the wholesaler distributor side. So it's kind of like, they handle all of that planning stuff. So I can't really answer a question like that. I'm sure there's all kinds of crazy ideas going on in there. And I'm sure people throw stuff at the wall. Some stick, some don't. It's kind of, that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Wendy, you had a question?
I do. So since we're talking about products, I'm going to start off by saying I'm a huge fan of cheese. Mm-hmm. So I really want to know more about this perfect pairing ale that I've been reading so much about the last few weeks.
Perfect pairing. Honestly, I wish I knew more about it. I know that it's included in the fall variety pack. It's a collaboration with the Cabot, the cheese company. Aside from that, I know that it's a beer that you could pair with cheese, and supposedly the flavors and the hop additions will actually kind of accentuate the flavors from the cheese. But I don't have a whole lot of information about what goes on with that beer, because it's actually it's not something that we're going to be putting into wide distribution aside from being in the variety pack. So it's kind of it's sort of like a one-off beer.
Okay, that's the off-centered party pack, right?
Yeah. Fall BP is coming out now. So
yes, I have been looking at all the reviews that have been coming out the last couple weeks, and I'm like, I need to try that so much. So I also have a quick question, because I'm the feel good sap. I'm the volunteer of the group. I cannot figure out how I end up doing it all the time, but I saw somewhere that there was a fundraiser at a Two Fat Guys in Hockinson, Delaware, to help veterans adopt dogs that will feature a keg of 120-minute IPA that has been aging since 2014. So I'm curious, how much does a 6-ounce pour of an 8-year-old 120-minute IPA go for?
That's a very good question. And again, I'm going to have to kind of say, I don't really know. I'm actually up here in South Portland, Maine. So, I mean, that's something that was planned down in Delaware. So unfortunately, I don't really have an answer on that.
So do you suggest aging the beer that long?
Oh, 120?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. I have sampled 2010 120s, and basically 120 turns into a kind of like a barley wine. The hops kind of fall out of it. It takes on a little bit more sweetness. Bitterness kind of goes away. So yeah, I mean, I've had 2010s that were definitely very much drinkable. So very much an drinkable beer.
I was going to say with the 2016 that I drank, that is exactly kind of what you're saying, that it starts to turn into a barley wine. There's a little bit of a sweetness. There's this inexplicable date flavor that's coming from it that I was not expecting. And I'm glad I enjoyed it, but at the same time, I wish it was still sitting in the basement right now. Happens.
So
sorry.
I am a huge sucker for events like that. So if anybody else wants to know if they made their goal, I will let you know. As of yesterday, their Facebook still said they were tallying the numbers. So we'll post it on the Facebook once I get that information. But I also wanted to kind of go back a little bit to your other question about the Wake Up Worldwide Stout. Mm-hmm. I guess my first question is, why mess with such a good thing as the Worldwide Stout?
Well, I mean, everybody does it. I mean, it's basically you will have a solid beer, and you take out, you do variants. It doesn't mean you get rid of the original. You just every now and then kind of throw a variant in. kind of say like, hey, we're having fun with something. And then also, it supports a local coffee company in Rehoboth that, we have a good partnership with them. And no, it's kind of fun. I mean, that's the whole idea behind Dogfish Head, is like having fun with beer. It's not sticking to like, the norms, the whole off-centered ethos, the whole just kind of like, let's just kind of like, let's see what we can do with this. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I've not yet had the Wake Up Worldwide stuff, but the fact that it's being released tells me that my Century people have actually said like, hey, it's good. So
I'm looking for it because it says mid-September. So I've already started looking.
Yeah, it's rolling on trucks right now. So
I will definitely keep paying more attention then. My last question though about that is, what is the Caution Cap series?
Caution Cap series, basically it indicates that it's an ageable beer. So anytime you see that green cap, it means that no matter whether it's like 120, like IPA, Worldwide Stout, like anything else, like it's going to be something that you can actually put in your cellar and like keep going. Honestly, there are a couple of other beers that have just like the red cap. I mean, this guy, you can successfully age it to a degree, but not for a long term. But the whole idea of the Caution Cap is, one, it's a big beer. It's going to be a big beer. It's going to have a lot of alcohol in it, which allows it to age over time. So that's the whole idea of the Caution Cap.
That's awesome. Nick?
Gonna go a little bit on the personal route on the question, CJ.
Yeah.
So as I was trying to get prepped for the show, had to dive into your LinkedIn for a little bit. You've only been with Dogfish Head / Boston Beer Co. for just a couple of years.
Yeah.
When Dogfish Head got purchased by Boston Beer Co. and call it a merger, call it an acquisition, call it what you call it, whatever it may be, were the nerves going high because you didn't know what was going to happen to you personally? Because when you get purchased by, Dogfish Head was a pretty considerable brewery on its own up until it's purchased, and then the bomb gets dropped that Boston Beer Co. is buying Dogfish Head. Were the nerves up there when you heard the news, or was there some kind of assurances that you guys in DFH were going to be okay in the end?
I think it was probably kind of a split, between like certain people. I mean, it's just kind of like, for my wife and I, my wife was actually the procurement buyer for Dogfish, for packaging. When she and I were, the funny thing is, she and I were actually down in Nashville, North Carolina, when this was announced. So friends of ours, Amy and Tara, were actually texting us what was going on at this company meeting. And, we heard all these things, these rumors of what was going on. And like, they texted like, oh, well, we're joining Boston Beer. And for she and I, it was an immediate kind of like, well, there's a whole shit ton of opportunity here. I think for other people, they kind of like, it didn't really fit what they wanted to do. So we had some people leave, but at the same time, it's kind of like, for us, I think it was a logical move because, Sam and Jim have been friends for decades at this point, I guess. And, they've worked together a long time, and kind of like, you're seeing a lot of this in the craft market where like, you've got, craft breweries that are kind of like merging, pulling together. You've got these, things going on. It's kind of like, it's a survival mode at this point, because we all know that craft beer is kind of like, shelf space has kind of dropped a bit when it comes to that, like seltzers and things like that come in, and RTDs, and like, and the irony of that is like, Boston Beer obviously produces a lot of those. So, and, those are things, you're pointing that out. Those things are flying off the shelves right now. So, whether it's that or our beer, we're stoked about the fact that like we're still relevant and like doing great stuff. So
I'm glad that the nerves weren't that high. I'm glad that it's for you and your wife. It was a seamless transition. It seems like maybe a few bumps, but I'm happy for you guys because we always hear these bad stories about what happens when smaller guys, or maybe in DFH's case, maybe not so small. I was, I would say a medium-sized fish in the craft beer pond that we live in, but now it's just a matter of who's going to be next, I guess. I don't have a crystal ball in front of me. You mentioned RTDs, and I wanted to talk a bit. Ken and I already showed the cans on the camera once already. I'm going to show it again. I cracked open the Vodka Crush, and just really quickly, it's awesome. It's very good. Very, very good. Was not expecting that. But on that note, when I first heard of Dogfish Head for the very, very first time, I always associated DFH with the IPAs, the 60 minutes, the 90 minutes, the 120, the 517. Don't quote me on that one. Maybe you guys can use it. But anyway, IPAs and the stouts. We already mentioned Worldwide Stout. There was Beer for Breakfast as well, which is another good one. Beer for Breakfast is another good beer too.
Don't forget Dan's favorite beer, the Pumpkin Ale.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the pump. Yeah.
You should make that. You should make that all year.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Sarcasm on Dan's part, but anyway. So when I hear DFH, I think about those two styles. Now you guys enter the RTD market with something like this.
Yep.
When I first saw it, I didn't know what to expect. Do you suppose, and maybe this is purely opinion, your own opinion, or not an official position, but maybe your opinion. Do you feel like getting into like the RTD market might take away from IPAs and stouts that DFH puts out? Or do you feel like this is just another feather in the hat for DFH Boston Beer Co. that you guys are going to take off with something like this? I mean, again, drinking this, it's pretty damn good. But what are your thoughts about DFH diving into the RTD market? And do you think that this is going to be another big staple for you guys?
100%. It's another feather in the cap. We have been distilling since, I think, 2002, I think. Sam actually, he cobbled together this still, based on like stuff that he found at a scrapyard, and like actually started distilling in the original Dogfish Brew Pub. But now we have these stills in the Milton Brewery that are just these massive stills. We've been distilling since 2002. We actually have a lot of spirits that we do, just straight spirits. So this is a logical route because obviously RTDs are taking off in the marketplace. But we use purely culinary ingredients in these. So, that's why they have such a short shelf life and things like that. So, I mean, it's all real fruit juice. It's all real herbs, real, things like that, basically it kind of sets us apart, I think, from like other RTD producers where they're mass producing this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of hands-on with these things. So I think that it's definitely a big feather in our cap, and it's taking off. And I'll tell you from my position where I'm with I'm a divisional analyst, and I work with wholesalers. They can't keep it on the floor. I mean, it goes out constantly.
Right.
So
good. We got one question from the chat, and then we're going to pass it back over to Ken. So the question from one of our viewers in the chat. One of the best things about craft breweries is their connection to communities. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to us a little bit about the philanthropic branch of DFH and some of the causes that you guys at DFH support?
Yeah, we did. Early on with Dogfish Head, we had what was called Beer and Benevolence, and this was a program that was actually started off by Mark Carter. Actually, I think it was started off by Mariah, the co-founder of the brewery, Mariah Calgione. But Mark Carter headed it up for years. And the primary thing that we did with the beer and benevolence was we worked with Habitat for Humanity. And in coastal Delaware, we would go out and work with the Habitat Humanity to build houses. So every year we would have what was called Benevolence Day, where the entire brewery would basically shut down and everybody would go out to various parts of coastal Delaware to help build these houses. Now, that's the benefit of merging with Boston Beer, is now that we have a huge footprint across the country. So we've expanded that benevolence across the country so that we can actually like do a lot of benevolent things and philanthropic things across the country. Because I mean, we're reaching into spaces that Dogfish originally didn't really have that acquisition, that ability to like be able to get in there. So it's really kind of cool that we can kind of do that, in the Boston area, obviously in Milton, Delaware. Now that we have like salespeople across the country, like every state in the country, we've got people that can kind of go out and like do this stuff. And it's a continually expanding philanthropic thing that Mariah is actually driving at this point. So it's pretty expansive at this point.
All right, there you go. Gonna turn it back over to Ken to get ready to close us out.
All right, before we go into the final questions, there is one question that I think is on the mind of a lot of people when they talk about craft beer. Obviously, price is a massive thought in theory, and one of your guys' biggest beers that you sell is the Utopias, which has a hefty price tag, should you be able to find it. For those who are seeing it on the shelf and they're like, why the hell is a beer, near $200? Can you give us a little bit of a breakdown as to why that beer has a suggested retail price of that?
I honestly wish I could. It's one of those things that, like, I've worked for Boston Beer for 3 years at this point, and Utopias, I know that there's a lot that goes into it. It probably, like, part of it. I'm going to hold this bottle up here. I mean, it's a handcrafted bottle, and like the handcrafted bottle has nothing to do with the fact that the liquid inside is something that has been crafted. I mean, I can't even speak to what they do with it because I'm not on the brewing side, but I'm kind of going in an alley of saying, like, I don't really know if that makes any sense. But I mean,
it's always funny how there's like every 2 years, someone will post an article about the states that ban that beer. I believe because of the ABV, but yeah. I guess from having it and drinking it, regardless of price, is it worth every penny? I had it up, and I was at an event up in Booth Bay Harbor, Maine, a couple of months ago, and I had it up there, and it comes off more like a liqueur than it does like a beer. I mean, it's a very cool beer experience, and I don't think you could put a price tag on tasting it and, for lack of a better term, the effects that it gives you. It's a fun beer. It's something fun to have. I understand the price is up there, but at the same time, it's like I can't really address why that is there. Oh yeah. Here in Michigan, we can't get it for anything cheaper than, I believe, $2.50. I think is the cheapest I've seen.
Yeah, right. It's expensive. It's expensive.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we end the show with our final questions going around the horn. We will start with Wendy. Wendy, what is your final question for CJ here?
What is your favorite style of beer? No, not what is your favorite. What is the style of beer you would like to see more of from either of your companies?
West Coast IPAs, 100%. I'm starting to see those creep up at like local breweries, and I miss good, solid, just kind of like bite you in the face West Coast IPAs. So those are the ones that I'm looking for. I mean, Stone, when Stone IPA and like, all of those like San Diego breweries came out with like the intensely hot IPAs. I loved those things. So those are the ones that like I kind of look for, and like I'm starting to see it a bit more. So it's exciting to me.
Dan.
All right. Found an interview that you did about 4 years ago. I'm curious if the answer is still the same. What's your favorite beer that's a non-Dogfish Head beer?
Favorite beer that's a non-Dogfish beer? Yeah, it's hard because honestly, it's like every beer I have, I love. And, not every beer I have, I love. But I mean, it's, I'll tell you that, here we go. Maine Beer Company Dinner.
Ooh.
Maine Beer Company Dinner is a solid beer. It's a clarified double IPA. It's just a great beer.
Great beer.
Back in 2018, you said Bell's Two Hearted.
I still actually just the other night I had a Bell's Two Hearted, and like Bell's Two Hearted knocked Pliny off of the pedestal.
Symergy list.
One of the few IPAs I like. I agree with you. It's a good beer.
Yeah.
Nick, what's your final question?
CJ, what beer are you drinking this weekend that is not a Boston Beer Co. beer or a DFH beer that you will be enjoying this weekend?
That's going to be a long list, dude.
Well, you mentioned two. Well,
let's do the first three.
Yeah, let's do the first three that comes to mind.
Okay, let's see. Austin Street, Lone Pine, Good Fire, Foundation, probably some Battery Steel. I mean, I love the local Portland beer scene. It's just amazing. So it's there's any number of beers I'll be touching. I know we're talking about going. My wife and I are talking about going to Four River Brewing tomorrow, which is like just up the road from us, and they're cranking out some great stuff. But it's I have a fridge full of Dogfish here, and when I'm not drinking it, I go for the local.
Foundation is one of the breweries that's in the that like collaborative space, isn't it?
Yep, Allagash. It's like Allagash is right here. So you got Foundation, you got Battery Steel, Austin Street, you've got Definitive right there. My neighbor actually is funny. He's an Allagash brewer, so he and I are always passing beers over our fence. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I know Definitive was very, very good because that's the one like along with Allagash is in its own little area, not in that the main building.
Right.
But I believe it was what's the one that's on the end closest to the main road? So not at like the way they get to Allagash, but that road right before it. It's right on the corner. Was that Foundation?
That's Foundation.
Okay.
Foundation, yeah. And the funny thing is Foundation is actually in the spot that Maine Beer Company started in.
Interesting. I didn't know that. When I went there, I had the opportunity to have their Oktoberfest. And that beer stuck in my head so much because it was, mind you, it was the fourth or fifth brewery we were at by that time, but still an amazing beer. They
got the Stein hoisting competition tomorrow. So the Stein hoisting competition is going tomorrow.
Robert, what's your final question?
I guess real quick, just a quick shout out to my friends in New Hampshire, Brian and Lydia, who will be celebrating their anniversary in the coming weeks. And definitely a shout out to Portland, Maine, as going out there for the wedding. We got to experience the 3-state meal in having breakfast in New Hampshire, going to Portland, Maine for lunch, and then driving to Boston for dinner. So definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, I mean, Portland was an awesome town. I still have my Black Dog Martha's Vineyard mug that I still use at my desk at work. So all of that. But my final question has nothing to do with beer. My question is, most underrated punk rock group that you wish got more attention? Because I believe you listen to punk rock.
I listen to a lot of punk rock. Most underrated. Every band I listen to, I don't think are underrated because I love them. There's a band called Anti-Nowhere League. Anti-Nowhere League, they're gritty, they're dirty, they're offensive. But yeah, they're a great band. Second, I mean, Charged GBH is a band that I've been listening to since I was probably about 12 years old. They're just great, freaking chaos punk.
Yeah, nice. There it is.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with my final question because we talked briefly, and I feel like we could probably do 3 or 4 more shows to get through all the questions we want to ask. But we talked briefly about your craft cocktails for your RTDs. Dogfish Head has an entire line of spirits. What is your favorites of the spirits that they have, and what is a good cocktail you make from them, or neat? Your choice is yours.
Can you pause for a second?
Can I pause for a second? I can talk a lot too. Nick, what did you think of this blood orange? By the way,
I thought it was fantastic. I didn't know what to expect, but you think it's too sweet. I think I think it's spot. I mean, I think it's spot on.
All right, so
This right here.
we've got
the gin.
So that's a
Holy
man after
gin.
my heart.
And just a straight up gin and tonic on this guy.
I'm one of those weirdos that I love gin straight. Maybe a little chilled.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, and I agree. Honestly, it's like gin and tonic, but I mean, just a touch of tonic, and it's just kind of like it's perfect. Particularly with this guy, because I mean, this is like whole leaf. It's hop infused. So,
is there any plans for distribution outside of the area, maybe to Michigan, of the spirits?
TBD. Yeah.
Fair.
I'll say, like, with a smile, TBD.
Well, I'm always looking for a new beverage to drink. That's going to do it. Better on Draft. $2.99, right. Guys. We're almost at 300. We can feel it. Dogfish Head. You guys have a brewery and a brew pub out there, correct? Where is everything at?
We do. In Milton, Delaware, we got the brewery. The original brew pub was in Rehoboth. That has been raised. That's now we now have Chesapeake, Maine, which is the seafood. That's my dog. Sorry. And we have Chesapeake, Maine, which is our seafood restaurant, and we built a big new brew pub, which houses like a beautiful stage for like fans to play and things like that. So it's going off down there in Rehoboth.
All right, you can find them on socials. You can probably find them at your local store. CJ, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
If you guys haven't had the opportunity, they actually have a book out that you can get, the Dogfish Head 26 Years of Off-Centered Adventures. There's actually some information about CJ and his wife who used to work over at Dogfish Head as well, so go check that out. Go grab the book. We appreciate you coming on. No matter what you think of your beer, we think it's better on draft. Have a good night.
Peace.